Hello everyone, Storm11 here. Today we'll be having an update on the upcoming severe weather setups across parts of the south. Could see the potential for all hazards for some of these severe weather setups as well. So we'll be going into a little bit more detail on these potential severe weather setups as well that'll be going on over the next several days. Before we get started on this video, if you guys like weather related content, you can subscribe to my channel. We do stuff here all the time on this channel. Plus, we'll be having more updates on these upcoming severe weather setups over the next several days. So definitely stay tuned for more updates as well. So what we got going on across the country right now? We have some severe weather in the parts of Georgia, South Carolina, I believe Alabama as well, and even in the parts of the Central Peninsula of Florida, including one tornado that I've heard so far today near the Tampa area, which is for right now it's been preliminary rated as an EF1 tornado. And then again, that's a preliminary rating. It could change. But for right now, it's been preliminary rated as an EF1 tornado. Pretty much the severe weather threat, though, is pretty much over with. You do still have some severe thunderstorms just off the east coast for parts of Florida as well. But we still have some severe weather ongoing for parts of central Georgia and the parts of South Carolina as well. Really, the main threat of those is just the potential for large hail. You got a very cold air aloft going on, so it doesn't take much way of strong updrafts to get some hail producers out there as well. We also had some major flooding problems for the Birmingham, Alabama area as well after they got a lot of rain in a very short period of time as well. Radar estimates have been 2 to 4 inches of rain in a very short period of time, and that led to some significant flooding issues. Other than those things, it's been generally mostly quiet across the country. There's some wind and red flag warnings across parts of the several plains, and also some winter weather related issues for parts of Colorado as well. Other than that, it's been quiet for at least for most of the country as well today. So this is for the rest of today. We got slight risk for severe weather for parts of central Florida, and pretty much the severe weather risk is over with at this point. And that does continue up into parts of Georgia, South Carolina, where we still have that severe weather potential continuing on. And it'll continue over the next several hours as well. The main threats, we got a 2% area tornado risk for parts of Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. It's a very low chance, but it's not zero. Low in hail or wind risk. And then here's the hail. That's the main threat. It's actually hail. And you do notice there's a hatched area in the parts of Florida. That's only the second time the SPC has actually issued a hatch area for significant hail, which is at 2 inches in diameter or larger. Now, I don't think we had any very large hail reports down there, but even if we haven't seen any reports of that, we still had a decent amount of hailstorms down in Florida as well. So, regardless if it's verified or not, you guys still saw quite a bit of hail down there today as well. So here's tomorrow. We got slight risk for severe weather from southern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, and it does move into parts of Louisiana and southern Mississippi. The main tornado risk area to watch for will be in the parts of southeastern Louisiana. Wind would be the primary threat, at least for southeastern Louisiana, and also up in the parts of southern Oklahoma and northern Texas. And hail pretty much for everywhere else that's in that slight risk for severe weather as well. So for some areas, all hazards are possible. And there's some other areas that hail is the main threat as well. Then on day 3, which is Friday, we got slight risk for severe weather for parts of southeastern Louisiana, far southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, the western part of the Florida Panhandle, and far southwestern Georgia as well, with a very large marginal risk that includes parts of the Carolinas, the Tennessee Valley, and even for parts of the Ohio Valley as well. Don't be surprised if this slight risk area does get expanded a little bit further to the north as well. This is a little bit of an outdated outlook here, but I think we are going to see this slight risk expansion at least to the north as well, just a little bit. Then on day 4, which is Saturday, we got a 15% slight risk for the eastern Carolinas. Day 5, potential too low, but then you get to day 6. This is the next severe weather event, potentially. And this is for Monday of next week. We got 50% slack rates for most of eastern Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, southwestern Arkansas, and even for parts of western Louisiana as well. And honestly, it would not surprise me, maybe either tomorrow or Friday, we could see a 30% area be added somewhere in eastern Texas. Things have already uptrended a decent amount for eastern Texas. And then here's day 7, which is Tuesday of next week. You got the slack risk in southeastern Texas, most of Louisiana, a good chunk of Mississippi, southeastern Arkansas, and parts of southwestern Alabama as well. And then on day 8, nothing much of anything on there just yet. Well, let's talk about the rest of tonight. This is the herd model of how it wants to show things. You can see there some of those hailstorms do continue in the parts of Georgia, even the parts of South Carolina later tonight. Eventually, the severe weather risk should move out of there by later tonight as well. And really, by Thursday, it's pretty much mostly quiet in the southeast. But we are going to see some severe weather off to the west here, even for parts of Oklahoma and Texas. That's where we have the wind risk and even for some hail as well. And there might be a very low end tornado risk for parts of southern Oklahoma and northern Texas as well. That same mode of severe weather will continue to move off to the east into the overnight hours on Thursday. And you do notice that there is a potential for some stronger storms in southeastern Louisiana as well. And those will be the ones that may have the potential to produce all hazards, hail, damage to winds, and there's also that potential for tornadoes down there as well. And that's pretty much the max in around. Doesn't go through Friday just yet. Let's go ahead and move our sector to the south central U.S. so we can at least get everybody within the risk area for tomorrow. So we're going to first check out the surface-based cape. How much instability could we see out there tomorrow? Well, there could be a decent amount out there, especially when you get up into parts of Oklahoma. You got some areas getting up to a 2,000 joules per kilogram cape, which if we get a sounding up there, kind of along the Red River, you do notice here, it looks like there's certainly been an uptrend here when it comes to the tornado threat, at least indicated by the HER model. There's more wind shear going on in this location. Also dew points are right around 60, which is favorable for severe weather. And there's also then again plenty of instability to work with as well. And also do notice that the lap rates are on the strong side, especially in the mid-levels, which could lead to indication for not only for hail, but the potential for some significant hail as well. You also got a decent elevated mix layer here. If you guys do not know what an elevated mix layer is, it's where your green line, which is the dew-point line, and the red line is the temperature line, they're further apart from each other. The further apart they are, stronger the elevated mix layer is. You also got a pretty good hodograph out there as well. So it not surprise me, depending on what type of mode it is, which there may be the potential for some discrete cells, those will be the ones that may have the better opportunity to produce tornadoes as well. But it seems like in this area here, it's favorable for all hazards as well. So we may see at least a 2 or 5% be issued for parts of southern Florida and northern Texas on their next update. You can see here how your favorable instability values do continue to move off to the east as well. And you can see here what's going on for most of eastern Texas, at least 1,000 joules per kilogram cape. But when you get down to southeastern Texas, we do back off on the wind shear values just a little bit here. That will kind of decrease your tornado probability, even for severe weather in general as well. I also do notice that the elevated mixer is very strong in the upper levels, which can limit storm development as well. That could lead to some very discrete cells out there as well. And that could be a failure mode as well. But besides that, most of your other ingredients in place. Some wind shear still around. Now lap rates is not as impressive here, but there is also a decent amount of cape. And also the downdraft cape number is also very elevated as well. So honestly, for what I see in here, I think the main threat would be wind. But there could be a very low tornado risk. It would depend on if any storms could form in that type of environment as well, especially where you have that very strong elevated mix layer. You can see how your severe weather potential does continue in the parts of southeastern Louisiana as well. And there's some pretty good sounding down there as well, or favorable environment, I should say. Then again, a pretty strong elevated mix layer, which can keep things a little bit more discreet When it comes to storms, plenty of instability. Downdrift Cape is also pretty elevated. Lap rates are not too bad in the mid levels anyway. Plenty of wind shear going on. It also got a good hodograph. So this has the potential for, at least for damage wind, and even for a low tornado risk as well for these areas down here as well. So we definitely need to pay attention to, at least for summer Oklahoma, eastern Texas, even in the parts of, at least for most of Louisiana anyway, as we get to Thursday evening into the overnight hours into Friday morning as well. And you can see here how things do go on into Friday. These valves spray out there, but the hurlball doesn't go for the entire event at that time period just yet. Let's check out them significant weather parameters here. Really, over a 1, conditions are favorable for tornadoes, but if it's over a 2, that could be favorable for stronger tornadoes, which is EF2 or higher. As you can see here when we check out significant weather parameters, very elevated numbers, but this is a big but. A lot of times these numbers can be skewed, especially when it comes to the plains. The reason why, even though your numbers may seem ridiculously high, number one, you got a very strong elevated mix layer. Storms will have a hard time developing in that type of environment. And really, the most important part, you got a mid-level cap. And what a cap is, it's basically a warm air loft, or it's kind of like a brick wall, and the storms can't form pass through that wall. So you can't get thunderstorms at the top of the environment. That's why there's no risk area in central Texas, because there's a cap in place. But as you get deeper into the overnight hours, the cap does begin to erode away. You can see here in southeastern Texas, we don't have that cap anymore, but we still have that very strong elevated mix layer, which can limit thunderstorm development as well. We also notice there's a pockets of very high numbers in southeastern Louisiana. We're not going to try to get the highest numbers we can because that could be a contaminated sounding, but in a little bit more of an accurate location here, this is what the Hermo is thinking of. You got a really nice photograph out there, plenty of wind shear ongoing, plenty of cape. Lap rate's also good as well. That's a crazy number for a downdraft cape number. 666. Never was expecting that. But anyway, what does sounding suggest? All hazards are possible. Wind, hail, even for that potential for tornadoes as well. And maybe, cannot rule out maybe for a stronger tornado as well, especially if some storms can stay pretty discreet. There might be one storm in there that may have the opportunity to produce maybe a stronger tornado as well. So we may have to pay attention to southeastern Louisiana early Friday morning. And you can see here that severe weather risk does continue into southern Mississippi and eventually getting into southern Alabama in the Florida Panhandle as well. You also do notice how numbers begin to increase further up north as well. Let's check out the NAML. This is the surface of composite here, and really areas I will focus on is areas at least in the orange and red colors. But like I was saying earlier, these numbers can be quite skewed. They can't see the cap or anything like that. Even though the number may be like a 6, like it was showing there, thunderstorms cannot develop in that environment because you got a very strong cap going on. That's when your red line crosses this blue dotted line as well. So that's why we're not going to get any storms in that type of environment. But then again, it'll erode later in the night into Friday morning, which then again, we certainly have to pay attention to southeast of Louisiana. That may be an area to monitor Friday morning, which if we get sounding from the NAM, yeah, NAM and Hermal both agree on a pretty good environment for southeast of Louisiana. So potential for, depending on how storm mode goes, there might be a potential for an enhanced risk upgrade. I mean, these conditions here look pretty favorable for all hazards, including the potential threat of tornadoes, and one of those could be strong as well. So we're going to have to monitor southeast of Louisiana here, especially when her and NAM model both agree on a pretty good environment out there as well. So we definitely got to watch for southeast Louisiana into southern Mississippi Friday morning. Well, let's get to the other side of the state. Let's go into western Louisiana Friday morning. What's it looking like over there? If the sounding can load. Well, while that loads, let's check out some other ingredients here. Like, for example, here, like the low of a jet, which in this case here, you do have a pretty decent low of a jet in place, at least for southeast Louisiana, and even includes a good chunk of Mississippi as well, which could be an indication for some wind shear out there as well. Dew points, plenty dew points, yeah, we're definitely not going to have a problem with that. Here's instability. When it comes to surface-based cape, if it's going to load, it may or may not. There we go. Plenty of instability out there, especially for the early morning hours. I mean, 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram cape in the early morning hours, that's pretty good for March. Which, of course, they do live very close by the Gulf of Mexico, of course. But either way, still pretty good for the morning hours. And you can see here, you got that capping going on. This is not really a good sounding at all. Even though you do have a decent amount of cape, but you're lacking on the wind shear though, and that's not going to lead to organized storms. Maybe a strong storm could be in here, but really this is not a good sounding here. If there's an area I will focus on Saturday morning, then again, it'll probably have to be these areas. But let's get deeper into Friday. You can see here, as we get deeper to Friday here, this is instability. We got pretty elevated numbers out there. Generally, 1,800 to up as high as 2,600 joules per kilogram of instability. So these are some pretty high numbers for this time of year. Even that 1,000 joules per kilogram cake gets as far north as northeastern Arkansas. That'll be another area to focus. Is areas a little bit further north here. We may see the potential for strong storms up there as well. Depending on how much instability we could see up there, can really determine the threat for some severe weather up there as well. We have a decent amount of wind shear in place, but there's still a big question of how much visibility we could see up there. That's kind of the main uncertainty. Plus, dew point values will be lower up there as well, so that's another thing that should be noted as well. But the area we really need to focus on will be in this area right in here. So let's go back to the superset composite, and there's some pretty elevated numbers out there. And anytime we get numbers at least of 4, and especially when we get into those red colors, there's a pretty decent, these are some pretty good chances out there. Well, I should say pretty decent chances, I should say. So let's get a sounding in Severn, Alabama. You can see here, instability values are pretty elevated out there, getting close to 3,000 joules per kilogram. Pretty high for this time of year. Downdraft cave is pretty elevated. These evaporates. There is a very strong elevated mix layer in the mid levels, which can limit severe thunderstorm development. But wind shear is really lacking here. That's one thing that's lacking out here is that wind shear a little bit. There's also a decent hodograph as well. That's probably what's leading to these higher numbers is the instability. But when we get deeper to Friday night, that's when the wind shear really begins to ramp up. And you can see there's still some good numbers out here. But let's get a little bit more of an accurate sounding though. You don't always want to go for the bullseye because there's potential that could be skewed. Which in this case right here, as you would expect, wind shear values do begin to increase as you get deeper to the overnight hours. Still plenty of instability left. So maybe the main time frame for severe weather, for at least for Southern Alabama, might be more later in the evening. Even though instability values will decrease, your wind shear values will increase at the same time. I think I said cape increase. I meant to say cape decrease as you get deeper into the night. That's what I meant to say. You can see there's still some pretty decent numbers out there, especially when you get into the overnight hours into Saturday morning as well. And look at that in the Eastern Carolinas as well. So really overall, really for Friday, we'll have to, if there's an area we'll have to pay attention to, it'll probably have to be in this area right here. Any discrete cell that forms out there will have the potential to have all hazards. And then again, it seems like the NAML did back off of the wind shear values just a little bit compared to yesterday. Yesterday looked like a little bit more of a bigger setup, but for today, It's backed off a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see whenever the herd model gets arranged because it does have a better handle with the environment than the NAM. So we'll find that out by tomorrow. So let's move on to Saturday. Let's move up into the Mid-Atlantic. You can see here pretty good numbers out here. Then again, with those orange colors, it's actually much slower than some of the other models. The European model has it way out here. So there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to Saturday setup. And I do believe the NAM is the slowest. So I don't think we're going to see much way severe weather closer to the Appalachian Mountains at this time here. And I think your greatest opportunity for severe weather will probably be closer to the coastline. And I think wherever day 3 comes out for Saturday, we'll probably see a margin risk at least pretty decently inland, but that slack risk will probably get expanded a little bit further to the west as well. I'll show you guys some of the other balls here in just a moment just to kind of compare. A little bit early for soundings here on Saturday setup given by the uncertainty. But let's check out the wind shear or 850 millbar winds, the Lova jet. There's a pretty good Lova jet, at least over eastern North Carolina, and that goes up into southeastern Virginia. And even in yellow colors, that's still not a bad Lova jet either. But when you get those red colors, that's at least a 59 Lova jet, which would be favorable for some severe weather. When it comes to dew points, I think there won't be much of an issue when it comes to dew points. Dew points generally be in the low to mid 60s out there. Surface-based CAPE, plenty of instability out there shown by the NAM model. Generally 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram. That'd be pretty favorable. Mid-level lap rates, there's actually going to be some mid-level lap rates out there which could help have stronger updrafts, and that could lead to a hail threat as well. So really, by the NAM's prediction here, all hazards would be possible. You got decent amount of wind shear, instability, even lap rates that could support a potential hail threat as well. But then again, it's a little out there. It could change. The herd model typically handles better. We'll probably have a better idea whenever herd model comes out, but for right now, there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to Saturday. It really depends on the speed of the low. If it's faster, it could be more focused along the coastline. If it's slower, it could be a little bit further inland. We'll have to wait and see, but for right now, there's a lot of uncertainty here as you get into Saturday as well, which let me show you guys the other models here. So if I back this up here to Saturday, this is 2 o'clock. This is for the European model. Your front's already passed. Most of your variable instability values are all already well off the coast. Well, not well off the coast, but at least along the coastline. Here's a GFS. A little bit slow here, but it's a little bit more focused in eastern North Carolina. So, then again, plenty of uncertainty here for Saturday evening. Well, Saturday in general, anyway. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to Monday of next week, which actually I should probably pull up the actual precipitation map real quick before we get into a little bit more detail. I know I was forgetting something, but anyway. So this is how the GFS was to project the first system here into Friday. I'm also been trending towards a stronger system. European Malls has a stronger system here for Friday setup here, so that kind of increases the severe weather threat potential, but also pulls the low pressure system a little bit further north as well. But it also increases the potential for severe weather for areas a little bit further north as well. There's 2 different areas we're watching for on Friday. You can see here Saturday ATC, which is peak time heating. Your front is pretty much right here. And you can see here how it doesn't include much in the way of areas out there as well. So then you can see a lot of uncertainty. But here comes your big system right here. Here's Monday right here. And it's a little messy here from the GFS model here. It's got a surface low out here, but it's also got a low out here, which may be a little bit convection biased there. Maybe just a little bit here. And it seems like it kind of holds still there for a little bit in the several planes there for what the GFS was suggesting. But either way, it's a pretty strong system. It's below 1,000 millbar low. And that's going to help increase that severe weather threat. Stronger the low, it can bring in more wind shear. That can increase your severe weather potential. And given how far south it is, it's pretty close to the Gulf of Mexico. So you do need to watch areas in this area right in here as well. Severe weather threat moves a little further east on Tuesday. It's got the potential severe weather risk possibly getting as far north as maybe parts of the lower Ohio Valley as well. There's still uncertainty of how far north the low could get, but it does show heavy thunderstorms moving across parts of Kentucky and Tennessee throughout the overnight hours on Tuesday. But those storms do get out ahead of the front. Your main threat is still back here, so there may be a chance for a reinitiation, especially get up north as well, which we'll check that out by looking at the surface composite, which you can see here, pretty elevated numbers here. So this is about around peak time heating. There's some pretty high numbers out there. I mean, that's a 10 and 11. Those are some pretty high numbers. Now, you would think that, hey, there might be a cap there. Well, in this situation, there's actually not a cap. And that's kind of concerning when you do not have a cap out there. Maybe earlier in the day there's probably a cap, but regardless here, that cap's going to break at some point if there's one out there, especially early on. But anyway, there's no cap here at around peak time heating. You got a nice photograph. Elevated mixer is just good enough for some discrete cells to come up. Instability values are elevated. Lap rates are elevated. Downdraft cape is elevated. Um, wind direction of height. Plenty of wind shear. Good photograph. Almost everything is here for severe weather. So you got the potential for all hazards. Now I know it's a little bit too early for soundings, but this is just kind of giving us an idea what we could be dealing with here on Monday, especially if it trends towards a stronger system here where we get more wind shear, because with the placement of the low, it's pretty close to the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, the Gulf of Mexico is pretty warm. So when you got very elevated Cape values along with strong wind shear, that's going to spell some trouble. So that's why I'm a little bit concerned about the setup here, given the fact of how far south that low is with that wind shear content, which we'll check that out by looking at 850 millibar winds. There's a pretty good level of jet out there, and if it trends stronger, it's certainly not a good thing at all. So that's why I was saying earlier here. I mean, check that out early on. Peak time heating, you got a low of a jet of 77 knots. That's pretty impressive. Low of a jet. I mean, this would be a pretty concerning setup for severe weather. So it's definitely something you're going to need to monitor very closely here as well. Now, GFS may be a little aggressive right here, but regardless, there's certainly a severe weather risk out there. And that's why I was saying earlier that, hey, there's probably a chance that 30% enhanced risk could get added maybe either day 5 or day 4, if trends do continue, of course. If trends do continue, hey, we could see an enhanced risk sometime on day 4 or 5. We'll have to wait and see if they do it. But honestly, if balls trade towards the GFS solution, I would not be surprised if there's a enhanced risk for parts of eastern Texas for Monday. And here's Tuesday right here. Low jet's not as strong, but it's still supportive for severe weather out there. If you check out other ingredients like dew points, pretty favorable dew points, which does get as far north as southeastern Missouri and southwestern Kentucky. Instability, there's plenty of instability out there, especially in Louisiana, where you get at least 2,000 joules per kilogram. And a look at the superset composite, when you put a good amount of wind shear, elevated instability values together, you got a pretty elevated superset composite number, which you can see there. We definitely need to pay attention to areas in the orange and the reds there. That'd be an indication for potential for or a higher probability for severe weather as well. To kind of put in that perspective here as well. And of course, those numbers do come back down. Should get to later in the day, Tuesday. And here's Wednesday as well. And it really depends on how fast the low could go, which the GFS wall does have a progression bias. So also would not surprise me if it trends slower for Wednesday. But time will tell on that as well. Let's check out the European model here. So here's surface-based instability here. The low pressure system placement is pretty far to south. There's actually going to be two different lows, or possibly two different lows. There's going to be one up here, which you can tell there by these little white things of how they're moving towards here. That's wind bars, whatever you want to call it. There will be possibly be two different lows. There could be one to the north and one to the south here. And here you are getting deeper into Monday. Still some pretty good instability values out there. Generally 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram. Still favorable for severe weather. If you look into the low of a jet at the same time, it is strong. You got a strong low of a jet that goes all the way up to Oklahoma. So this is a very concerning setup here. If we kind of check out wind direction of height, so 850 millibars are coming from the southwest. We'll use the red arrows here. So 850 millibars, we'll put that in red. And then you go to the surface. There's a little bit of wind direction of height here, just a little bit. But as you get kind of closer to the low, it does turn a little bit more to the west, just a little bit here. You get more southwesterly winds than southerly winds here. But regardless here, there's still a decent amount of wind shear out there. And if we check out dew points here, you can see here we're not going to have an issue here with dew points here. Definitely not. It all really depends on how much wind shear we could see and how much instability we could also see as well, which unfortunately, at least for instability, I think it's going to be on the higher end, but wind shear is still a little bit up in the air for right now. Here's precipitation mode, and you can see here they got European model shows a big cluster of thunderstorms across central Texas there. As you get to Tuesday morning here, you can see our as it continues to move off to the east. You still got a strong low of a jet out there, which could help really ramp up those wind shear values. And instability, it's certainly on the weaker side here, but honestly, when not surprised me, the European model is a little bit underdone. I've seen it happen in the past where the European model is a little bit underdone with the instability. As you can see here, compared to the GFS, a little bit faster, but I think it's a little bit more accurate with the instability, just a little bit, if I'm going to be completely honest. You should see here as we get deeper today on Tuesday, you got potential severe weather risk for parts of Arkansas, most of Louisiana, eastern Texas, and possibly in the parts of eastern Oklahoma as well. And later overnight hours will eventually get into parts of Mississippi. And here you go with precipitation mode. Got a lot of thunderstorm activity going on out there. Check out the lava jet, still strong. Instability doesn't show much visibility, but then again, like I said here, it's probably going to be a little bit underdone here when it comes to instability values, or underestimating will probably be a better word to say it here. You can see here as it continues to move onto the overnight hours. You can see here with the placement of the low as well. Really by 5 a.m. Wednesday, it's got the low over Central Illinois, which can be an indication that severe weather risk potential could get as far north as parts of the Tennessee Valley and the Lower Ohio Valley as well. Here's that low of a jet. You can see here the warm sector is massive. Goes from central Indiana, Ohio, all the way down to the Gulf Coast. And here's the GFS model here, and I think this is nope, this is a newer run. Okay, cool. And you can see here for the GFS model here, it's a little bit amped with the system, a little bit further north of track, and it's still got a very large warp sector out there as well. And you see here when we go to precipitation here, got some heavy thunderstorms up to the north as well, which could be an indication for the potential for strong storms. And you can see here from the Euro, you got most of your organized storms more focused a little bit further south as well, if it's correct. And you move on to Wednesday here, severe weather threat does continue to move off to the east. You do notice there is the potential for reduced thunderstorm development a little bit further up north as well. We may need to watch for that area as well because there's still a good low of a jet out there. Just gotta see how much instability that we can see there. Those type of setups can be pretty unpredictable, especially this far out. So there's the Euro, and pretty much the timing on the Euro and GFS is about the same thing. Here's the GFS, still got a strong low of a jet going on into Wednesday night. When it comes to instability, it's not very impressed with instability at all. So there's still a decent amount of uncertainty here when it comes to Wednesday of how much instability we could see here. But regardless here, on Monday, Tuesday, at least Monday or Tuesday, there's a pretty good confidence that there's going to be a severe weather event for Monday and Tuesday. It's been consistent for the past several days. Both models show a pretty good environment for both days. You got a good amount of wind shear, good amount of instability in place here. We'll probably have a better idea on this when the higher resolution models come out, like the NAM, Rapid Refresh, HER, all that good stuff. That's probably when we have the best idea for this setup here as well. And here's the European ensembles here. I want to show you guys that real quick here to kind of give you guys an idea of the absurdity of the low track. You can see here by Tuesday here, peak time heating on Tuesday evening. You can see here every individual number here is a member here of the placement of the low by the member. It also tells you the strength of the low as well, which you got 999 millibars, 998, 1003 millibars. And you can see there's still a large spread here with the European ensembles here. And the reason why this is important here because it kind of gives you an indication of how strong the low could be and how far north the severe weather potential could get as well. There's a reason why I say this sometimes is that areas further up north, you may not be out of the severe weather potential just yet because look, there's still some members like all the way up into parts of northern Illinois and even the parts of southern Iowa as well. So there's still some uncertainty here with the track here, but most model members have a strong low, and that's kind of the concerning part, is that there's a strong agreement that this will likely be a strong low. And here's the GFS ensembles here with a much larger spread here as well, going as far as south of central Tennessee and as far north as upper Michigan. So there's still uncertainty here with the track of the low and even the intensity of the low as well. If it goes further north and if it's stronger, that increases the severe weather potential for areas a little bit further north, and potentially moving the severe weather risk area a little bit further north as well. Because if your low pressure system moves to the north, some of those favorable wind shear values also moves north with it as well. So then again, still plenty of uncertainty here of how far north your severe weather potential could get. But generally, for early next week here, definitely have to watch these areas right in here for severe weather over the next several days. But anyways, guys, that's all for guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Guys, like this video, hit the like button. If you're new on my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications to never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, put a comment section down below. I answer you guys questions, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.